The conversation begins by probing the subtle yet wide-ranging symptoms linked to insufficient sunlight exposure, which include fatigue, chronic inflammation, pain, and sleep disturbances. Dr. Roger Seheult emphasizes these are not vague complaints, but have substantial clinical and biochemical backing, including laboratory markers like elevated cholesterol and triglycerides that improve with sunlight exposure. He insists that sunlight deficiency ties not just to mild discomfort, but to increased mortality, with infectious and non-infectious diseases rising notably during low sunlight winter months. Dr. Selt stresses the urgency of considering sunlight as a pivotal health intervention, arguing it is the most effective, accessible, and least complicated step people can take to bolster both immediate and long-term health. This framing challenges typical health narratives that often focus exclusively on diet, exercise, and sleep, positioning natural light as a foundational but overlooked pillar of human well-being. Sunlight's role in human health is not a new discovery, but an ancient understanding that modern society has largely forgotten. Historically, hospital architecture and public health recommendations from figures like Florence Nightingale emphasized exposure to fresh air and sunlight for healing. Nightingale famously identified sunlight as second only to fresh air in promoting patient recovery during the Crimean War, reinforcing that direct sunlight was valued as essential care. The podcast reminds listeners that before modern artificial lighting and climate-controlled buildings, daily life inherently integrated ample sunlight exposure. When sunlight was consistently part of our environment, broad population health benefited, something less attainable today within increasingly indoor, climate-controlled, and screen-driven lives. Modern science now offers molecular-level insights into why these ancient practices had merit, revealing the profound biophysical interactions between sunlight and human physiology. A central part of the discussion dissects sunlight into three critical macronutrients: visible light, ultraviolet, UV light, and infrared, IR light, each with distinct physiological roles. Visible light is key for regulating mood and circadian rhythms, primarily by affecting brain regions that manage depression and the body's internal clock. Morning light exposure, rich in visible wavelengths, helps synchronize cellular processes and sets the timing of sleep-wake cycles. Ultraviolet B light, though often feared for its association with skin damage, is vital for catalyzing vitamin D synthesis in the skin, which has potent effects on immune function and overall health. Vitamin D itself is one part, but the podcast highlights the false reductionism of equating sunlight solely with vitamin D production. The third component, infrared light, especially near-infrared, penetrates deeply into the body's tissues, reaching mitochondria and enhancing cellular energy production, a function largely invisible but remarkably impactful. Delving deeply into infrared light, Dr. Seheult reveals fascinating new research showing that near-infrared wavelengths, around 850 nanometers, can pass entirely through the human body. This long wavelength light, though low in energy, penetrates far beyond the skin, even through bone, delivering therapeutic benefits directly to mitochondria, the energy powerhouses in cells. This mitochondrial stimulation improves energy production, which profoundly influences health outcomes ranging from vision to cardiovascular health. With aging, mitochondrial efficiency declines sharply, contributing to chronic diseases. Infrared light appears to partially reverse this decline, effectively charging our cellular batteries and enhancing body-wide function. This concept reframes sunlight as a radiant energy source critical for biological vigor, not just a generator of vitamin D or a cause of visible warmth. Several randomized controlled trials demonstrate the diverse corrective effects of sunlight and its spectral components on important health markers. For example, near-infrared exposure has improved visual acuity by reducing age-related deficiencies in color vision, showing immediate mitochondrial improvements in retinal cells. Other studies reveal remarkable metabolic benefits, such as a 27% reduction in blood sugar following red and infrared light therapy, underscoring sunlight's influence beyond simple calorie burning or physical movement. These benefits manifest within days or even minutes, making a strong case for sunlight as a swift, effective therapeutic tool. Moreover, epidemiological data reveal that sunlight exposure correlates with fewer cardiovascular events, lower cancer mortality, and reduced all-cause mortality, particularly in high-latitude regions with distinct seasonal sunlight variations. These findings weave sunlight exposure firmly into the fabric of disease prevention and health span extension. Dr. Seheult paints a picture of modern indoor lifestyles dominated by climate control, digital screens, and artificial lighting, devoid of the full solar spectrum. Most people now spend over 90% of their time indoors, often surrounded by LED lights lacking infrared wavelengths and insulated from natural sunlight by UV-blocking window glass. This lifestyle deprives them of the holistic benefits sunlight provides, leading to widespread light deficiency that exacerbates metabolic disturbances, inflammation, immune dysfunction, and mental health disorders. He contrasts this with those who maintain traditional outdoor activities, such as gardeners, who naturally receive ample sunlight and infrared light, illustrating the profound impact of daily outdoor exposure. For those confined indoors or living in regions with long winters or persistent cloud cover, supplemental strategies like red light therapy devices offer partial restitution, though they remain no substitute for the full spectrum and rhythm of natural sunlight. The podcast explores how the sun's diurnal trajectory choreographs a complex biological symphony through varying intensities and wavelengths. Sunrise and sunset offer infrared-rich light that promotes melatonin production in skin and cells, preparing the body for day and night, respectively. Midday sunlight, rich in UVB, triggers vitamin D synthesis, while visible light throughout the day reinforces circadian timing and mood regulation. Modern humans, by missing significant portions of this solar cycle due to indoor confinement, deprive themselves of this intrinsic temporal calibration. Sudden exposure to intense midday sun after prolonged absence often results in sunburn or damage, highlighting the importance of consistent, moderate sunlight exposure to build natural resilience. This natural progression acts as a built-in mechanism to minimize skin damage while maximizing health benefits, a nuanced relationship too easily overlooked. The shift from incandescent bulbs to LED lighting and the ubiquitous presence of screens complicate the modern light environment. LED lights largely emit visible light, especially blue wavelengths, but omit beneficial infrared light integral to cellular health. Screens emit disruptive blue light patterns that, particularly at night, impair melatonin secretion, delay circadian rhythms, and worsen sleep quality. Research shows that excessive nighttime light exposure correlates with increased all-cause mortality and elevated risks for cardiovascular disease, cancer, and metabolic disorders. Children are especially vulnerable. Evening screen use shortens sleep onset and reduces sleep duration, undermining cognitive function and physical development. Dr. Seheult warns that this constitutes a growing public health crisis, emphasizing the importance of limiting blue light exposure after sunset, using warm, dim lights in the evening, and protecting natural darkness during rest hours. Acknowledging the challenges posed by occupation, geography, and lifestyle, Dr. Seheult advocates practical, achievable steps to restore natural light exposure. Spending at least 15 to 20 minutes outside daily, preferably during morning hours when infrared and visible light synergize for circadian alignment, is ideal. For those in northern latitudes or confined indoors, supplemental use of bright light therapy boxes emitting 10,000 lux visible light can mitigate seasonal affective disorder and circadian disruption, though they lack infrared benefits. Layered protective measures can enable safe sunlight exposure, sitting in shaded areas surrounded by reflective greenery, wearing protective clothing, and avoiding direct sunburns. Importantly, even shaded environments rich in reflected infrared light confer substantial benefits, counteracting fears of sunlight while preserving mitochondrial stimulation. The emphasis is on consistent, moderate exposure that fits individual conditions, rather than sporadic, excessive sunlight sessions. Extending beyond light itself, the podcast highlights studies showing that residing near green spaces rich in trees correlates with significant reductions in inflammatory markers such as high-sensitivity CRP, a predictor of cardiovascular disease and stroke risk. The Green Heart Project in Louisville, Kentucky, where thousands of mature trees were planted in an urban area, demonstrated a 13–20% reduction in CRP levels among residents without any lifestyle or socioeconomic adjustments. This suggests that natural environments provide multifaceted health benefits, including enhanced air quality, phytoncides from plants, and abundant infrared light reflected off foliage, creating therapeutic outdoor microenvironments. The findings imply that nature exposure contributes to inflammation reduction and metabolic balance through both psychological and direct photobiological pathways. A particularly compelling theme is the impact of sunlight on metabolic health markers like insulin sensitivity and triglycerides. Evidence shows that greater sunlight exposure within just the preceding week improved these parameters significantly, underscoring sunlight's role as an active regulator of metabolic homeostasis. This challenges the narrow focus on diet and exercise alone as mechanisms for metabolic health, situating natural light as a critical factor for glucose regulation and lipid metabolism. Moreover, infrared light helps reduce oxidative stress tied to mitochondrial dysfunction, a root cause of many chronic diseases, including diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, and the lingering effects of infections such as COVID-19. This integrative perspective encourages a broader, more holistic approach to chronic disease prevention by addressing fundamental environmental inputs. Finally, the podcast closes with an emphasis on the critical counterpart to daytime light exposure, nighttime darkness. Maintaining near-complete darkness during sleep protects melatonin production and supports circadian integrity. The dangers of nocturnal light, particularly blue light, extend beyond insomnia to long-term health risks, including increased cancer rates and cardiovascular disease. For night shift workers or those exposed to unavoidable nighttime light, strategies such as dim red lighting and carefully timed darkness windows can mitigate some risks. Avoiding food intake during biological night hours further supports metabolic synchronization. This reciprocal dance between light and dark underscores a fundamental principle of human biology evolved under a natural solar cycle, now disrupted but recoverable through mindful lifestyle adjustments.